So welcome. I'm here to do a tutorial on how to set up the workbench for creating mods for the game DayZ. We start by creating a P drive and then we will unpack the game files to the P drive. We will install Jacob Mango's community framework, and then we will also make the setup to run your mods and build them with the workbench using Mikiro's PBO project setup. I'm using the licensed version. You can also do that with the free version. So let's get started. Initially, we make the P drive by going into the DayZ toolbox. There you go to settings. In settings, you have to make sure that this box is unticked. Then you can choose where you want to create your P drive. In this case, I will make a tutorial P drive folder that's on my G drive. And I will apply that as my new empty P drive. Doing so, I get the toolbox here trying to load. I make sure that I mount the P drive and I should now have a completely empty drive called P here, fast drive P empty. Now I want to fill that up. In order to do that, I use Mikiro's toolbox. You can also, and what I want to use is the Days2P drive because that's extracting all of the different files. You can also use for that Mikiro's free tools. He has here the installer for the exact same version, Days2P, which requires some of the others, DPO and DREP and DTEX and so forth. This is not a tutorial on how to use that. So extracting the different game files to the P drive, I run the Days2P. I get this prompt. If you get some errors, that's because you haven't installed everything correctly. So read the documentation. Alternatively, when you get to here, you click P and then it starts by cleaning up the drive and then starts to unpack the different PBOs to put them neatly into folders. In this case, the DZ folder, you can see how that starts to fill up here. I'm not going to hang around here waiting for this to complete, but we'll cut the video and come back once it is done. So, as you note, all of the content has now been extracted from the PBOs, and additional information has been included as well when you use the Mikiro setup. We could also have used the DayZ tools. They have a function here to extract game data. Personally, I prefer to use the Mikiro setup as that includes additional information and unpacks a little more nicely. So once we have unpacked everything here, it contains all of the unpacked structures of the game files, includes all of the scripts, including the different classes and so forth that you can use in your programming, in your learning of the programming as well. It's currently not structured as neatly as I would prefer, so we go to Inclement Dab, who has a Days utility folder on his GitHub, where we want to download this content. What we are after here is the fixed script bat. So I download, I unpack, I go to source, I take the copy of fixed script.bat and I go to the root of the P drive. I paste the script there, I run it, And what it does is that it wraps all of the scripts here so they're neatly packed in a days folder. So I know when I see a script that this is original days content and not something that has been modded in. Once that is completed, I delete the fixed scripts and that part is done. Next, I want to make sure that I actually have Jacob Mango's CF included. So going to his GitHub here, I go to the community framework. I download that as a zip as well. And once that download is complete, I unpack that, copy that, and then put that, in my case, on my G drive at the root. Going in here, I now want to link this to my P drive. So I don't want to have it contained in the P drive, but I want to create a symlink that actually makes it accessible from the P drive. To create that, Jacob has included a bat file in his Git repository that basically creates the links I need. So what happens here is that this is a reference to the root where the bat file actually resides, and then it checks whether the folder JM exists on the P drive. If not, it creates it. Then it checks whether the folder CF in the JM folder exists. If not, then that is created. And once these are created, then it creates the symbolic link between the current position and then the p:/jm/cf directory. So if you note here on my P drive, there is no JM folder now. When I go in here and run this bat file, it automatically creates the link I need. It creates the JM folder. In the JM folder, it creates a symlink to the CF. You can see that by the little arrow here, that this is actually not a folder, but just a reference to a different folder. So now I have successfully included the community framework, and I'm ready to proceed with my install. So getting from my repository here, the scripts needed to actually set this up, I have included that in this repository that will be linked underneath the video. Again, downloading that as a zip file, unpacking that, taking a copy and putting that to my G drive as hlinch master. I now have in here a master folder, a README that describes it, and then a setup work drive bat. So to make a new mod, I basically have to make a copy of the master here, rename that, and then make a few transactions in there, and then symbolically link that to the P drive. So I start, this is standard routine for making a new mod. I take a copy of this folder, I paste here. I decide that my new mod is going to be called, let's call it demo. In the demo folder here, I have different content where I want to do some transactions. So I go search here, find in files, and I point this to my G master here, demo, and in there I want to find master m@ster, and I want to replace that with demo for all the files in here. Now, when I do this replacement for all file types, I get 18 occurrences. That's what is supposed to happen. So I have now, for all scripts included in here, for all references, I have made sure that what was previously master is now renamed to demo. So I have a config here that contains the example, the name of the directory, so forth. All references are as they are supposed to be. I have in the workbench, I have the days gproc, I have the project and user configs, I have bat files and editors all set up correctly. The next thing is to then symbolically link this demo to my P drive. So I go in here, I edit this bat file, and if I want to check if the demo folder actually exists. If it exists, then I want to remove it. Then removing these two rems. If I want to create the link to demo from the current location to the P drive. So this is similar to what Jacob Mango did in his bat file. Now running this will create on my P drive a demo folder here that contains scripts, referenced GUI if that's needed for your mod. In the scripts folder here, I have workbench data mission. In mission, I have included Jacob Mango's demo mod for actually verifying that RPCs work in the game. I have a credits and version included default. I have the workbench folder that contains different batch files that are used to control the whole process. That contains editor plugins with links to the menus that we want to have in the workbench. I have also included the days gproc with the right references, so the game root, the reference to the community framework, and the reference to the pdemo mod that we are creating. There is also in here a user CFG, user config, that details that my work drive is the P drive, that I'm building my mods in the C mods directory. If I have licensed mod content, that gets built the same place. A reference to my keys, where they are stored, a key name of my key file, reference to the directory server and workbench directories, all finalizing with a backslash. I use the server password OK. A reference to the single player mission folder, to the mission files, to the multiplayer mission files, to the server profile directory, again ending with a backslash. A reference to the server config that includes a server CFG that needs to exist in this directory. I'm operating on this port with these exe files and these launch parameters. Player name voluntary, in this case my player name. Also there's for the given project that we want the mod to be called add demo. We want to include CF builder items in our testing. It has a prefix link root at D, which is the root folder of the mod. The scripts prefix is demo/scripts, as can be seen here. The GUI prefix is demo GUI, and this is the version 1 as stipulated. So I showed you that you needed to have in here the mods folder, and in there you copy the community framework CF and builder items if you need to load those. If you need to load more, then bring them in here. We will be building our demo here, so I'm taking that out. I also have included in here my keys, where I store my binary private key to be used for actually signing off the mods created. So keys in C mods, in there store your private key, and then these two mods are because that we need for testing. the setup of this particular mod. Going back to the P drive demo script workbench, I have set it up so when I double click this days P gprog, it starts my workbench. I do that by going to properties, change the file to default open this, scroll down, look for other apps, go to C, program files 86, going to Steam, going to Steam apps, going to common, going to days tools, in days tools finding bin, and in binary finding workbench, and then choose the workbench app.exe to open the files. Apply. Okay. Now when I double click here, I should get a functional version of the workbench. I do get this prompt because I have the days experimental version installed on my machine. So every time I start the workbench, I do get this information that you have 2 versions installed. I click OK, and it starts initializing the engine, starting up the actual editor that I can use. So once it has loaded up, I can see that I have on my game root, I have the community framework, I have my demo. All of these were referenced in my gprog, days gprog, and then I have the current directory included as well. So in order to start coding, changing my mod or creating my mod, I go to the editor. In here I can find the different content of the core, game lab, game world, mission, so forth. And as you can see, it's nicely structured that some content come from days, some content come from community framework, and this is the only element that's actually in my mod in mission 5. I have this test game where Jacob Mango made functionality to verify that you could actually communicate between server and client. So in order to build this simple mod, I go to plugins and I go build mod F8. It then runs through a series of scripts, and the mod has now been created. So when I go back here to my C mods folder, you can see that I have just now created the demo mod here with all of its content in all of its glory. When I do the same in order to test it, I actually just press launch server and client. It automatically then first builds the mod or deletes the old version of the mod, builds a new version of the mod, copies that to the C mods, then starts a server where that mod is loaded up. Once that is loaded and it has successfully read the mission and the server's up and running, it then starts to launch a client. That's what's happening now. That client is also loaded up with the mod in question. So we can test that it actually works. It takes a little while to start the game, but let's see how it goes. So the game has now loaded, the server has been started, and we are successfully get the prompt to log into the server with the modded client. Having the mod that we just created, plus the community framework CF, and also Bounty, the builder items that Not a Banana created, which is good to have if you want to do modding or map constructs or want to find additional information classes and so forth. We are now in the game. I'm almost dead, but that doesn't really matter. So in here, to test this, basically what Jacob did was that he made it so that when I press the K key a couple of times, I can see that I'm connected to between my server and client is actually connected. So if I go here to the server in my server profile and open the latest version of my scripts folder just generated now, you can see that the server function was actually called because this was actually the statement that I had here, and you can see that I called that a number of times. Again, to check whether the client version actually works, I could go here, app data, percentage, and then go up one, go to local, go to DayZ. In DayZ, I have this script here, and you can see that the version of the client is actually also loaded successfully here. So I am communicating between server and client. My mod is working. It was actually created and uploaded successfully. Now I want to close both the server and the client. To do that, I go to plugins and I click kill it. That makes a small prompt that basically kills both server and client. So now I have successfully made a mod. That mod I want to pack correctly. So in order to pack that correctly, I start up the PBO project. I now point that to my newly made mod on the P drive here, so my demo mod, and I want to pack that to my G drive in a newly created folder here called add demo. It's a silly name for a silly mod. On setup, I have made one small adjustment because as you noted in my folder structure, I had a folder called Workbench. So here in exclude from PBO, I have actually written comma Workbench here to make sure that when I pack the PBO, that whole folder structure is actually excluded from the packing. Now I build this, it creates the PBO and signs correctly. And I have now created my first mod with this setup demo mod with the scripts signed and with the by key included in the keys folder as well. So this is how you use and create mods using the Workbench setup and the Mikiro tools. I hope that this tutorial has been beneficial to you. Keep modding. Thanks for checking in. Bye.